Destiny is an oft-explored theme in the realm of film. Not just film, but storytelling in general. It's only natural that we want to examine whether everything is preordained, or if we have a choice in what becomes of us. We have seen stories where characters must learn to cope with the destinies given to them, but also where characters have chosen their own. But one series has focused its entirety on destiny, and with new installments continues to do so. Star Wars. The first 6 films can be seen as the story of Anakin Skywalker, and how a man destined to bring balance to the Force does fulfill that promise, but only after falling to the dark side. Anakin himself tries to pass a destiny on to his own son, telling Luke that it's his destiny to join his side and rule the galaxy. But I want to focus specifically on the newest entry in the franchise, and how it deals with the themes of destiny. Each of our 4 main characters' arcs revolve around destiny. Finn's centers on his fleeing the First Order. Kylo resists the light within him, calling him home. Rey struggles with the knowledge that the Force, and by extension the Jedi, are calling to her. And Han is dealing with his failings as a father, and whether it's too late to make up for them. These are weighty ideas, and it could easily bog down the proceedings of a sci-fi adventure serial, but it only adds to it. Without these notions, Force Awakens would undoubtedly be seen as a clone of A New Hope, and even with the theme of destiny, it's still seen as such. But I would argue that these character arcs are what help to separate Force Awakens from its franchise counterpart. On the surface, yes, Force Awakens repeats plot points from the previous film, but this simply allows for greater depth and complexity in the storytelling. Finn wants nothing to do with the First Order, having witnessed their horrifying powers firsthand, and knowing that a fight with them will be long and hard and hopeless. He spends the film protecting Rey, unwilling to be party to someone else dying at the hands of the First Order. Even though she can clearly take care of herself, Finn is just so tired of the fighting and bloodshed, having seen enough of it to last a lifetime, and he was only in one battle, that he can't be witness to someone else dying. What he doesn't realize is that the only way to protect people, to be sure that there will be no more death and destruction, isn't to run from the First Order, but to help stop them. It's a realization that comes at the hands of Kylo Ren taking out Rey and calling him a traitor. He understands that if this is to stop, if he wants to protect those he cares about and stop the senseless killing, then he will have to fight. He has to accept his destiny as a traitor, a rebel. Han's convinced that his son has been lost to him. There's nothing to be done that can bring him back, but as Leia tells him, there's good in him. Kylo's fall is a result of Snoke's manipulation. If anyone's to bring him home, it's his own father. This is a role that the film only hints at, that Han wasn't a great father and was most likely absent for much of Kylo's young life. But now he has a shot at redemption, and to be the father he was always destined to be. When finally confronted with his son, he steps up to the plate, reaching out to him as the father he always should have been. He accepts his destiny as a father. Now some would argue it's too little too late considering Kylo's reaction, but I think it's better late than never. Han's death isn't his fault, it's Kylo's. Kylo's the one out of the 4 that doesn't accept his destiny. He outright rejects it. Some might argue that Kylo's destiny is the dark side, but I respectfully disagree. Indeed, that's one of the core issues with Kylo. He believes it's his destiny to take up his grandfather's mantle and become a force of evil, but the film suggests otherwise. Not only is it hinted at that Kylo's fall is due to the machinations of Snoke, but there's also Kylo's own thoughts. He can feel the call to the light side, and it's urging him to follow in the footsteps of Luke, and ultimately those of his grandfather, who rejected the dark side at the end of his life. Kylo's destiny is one of good and light, but he refuses, and he suffers for it. He murders his father, eliminating one of the few people in the galaxy that actually cared for him. He's then shot, beaten, his lightsaber destroyed, and he's left disfigured by a less experienced but perhaps more powerful Force user. Yes, Han loses his life for accepting his destiny, but this is only because Kylo rejects his, bringing nothing but pain and suffering to himself. This leaves us with Rey, who's arguably the most important person in the galaxy. When confronted with her destiny as a Jedi, she sees nothing but pain, suffering, and death. Naturally, she flees. She wants nothing to do with Luke, because she only knows her own experience with his world. It's dark, terrifying, and is somehow tied to her being abandoned on Jakku. Why would she want anything to do with this? But in a moment of clarity not shortly after Finn's own, she accepts her own destiny. Anakin's lightsaber has been a tool of destruction, an instrument of misery. But Rey realizes that in her hands the lightsaber can be used as a tool for good. By accepting her place as a Jedi, she's stepping up to the challenge to be better than her predecessors and become a symbol of light and good. It's a beautiful sentiment, and it's why her call to action moment is fist pumping, and even elicited cheers at the screenings I went to. To make a choice is to be human, but so is acceptance. While I don't think Force Awakens is telling us to simply accept where we are as people, it is telling us not to run, but to stand, to fight, to be the change and symbol of good and heroism we want to see in the world. And while that may come across as a bit corny or cheesy, considering the unfortunate circumstances of the world around us, we need all of the good and heroism that we can get.